B'elanna, I think you're hot, but I know how ugly I am. So I am going to take your friend's face off. His face off. Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Faces, which is episode 13 of season 1 of Star Trek Voyager. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Voyager, one episode at a time. In this video I cover the first season episode Faces. So Faces is the episode in which B'elanna, Tom, and Ensign Durst get captured by the Vidiians, and the Vidiians find that Klingons are immune to the phage and may hold the secret to the cure for the phage. So they cannot access the Klingon DNA in B'elanna because she is a hybrid human Klingon. Her blood is impure. So they extract the Klingon DNA from her and create two versions of B'elanna, one fully Klingon and one fully human. And the Vidiians tossed away the human version of B'elanna, but they examine the Klingon version, and the scientist in charge kind of has a thing for her and falls in love with her, and to make himself look prettier, he kills Ensign Durst and puts his face on him, which is fucking disgusting. And eventually the Klingon B'elanna breaks free and runs away and finds the human B'elanna, and the two of them kind of bond. And then Chakotay beams down in disguise as a Vidiian, and they all work together to vacate the premises, and the Klingon B'elanna has to sacrifice herself to save the human B'elanna. But then once on board the ship, the doctor says that he can put the Klingon DNA back into the B'elanna to make her a full human Klingon once again. But B'elanna has acquired a greater appreciation for her Klingon half. So, I gotta be honest, this is one of those episodes that I didn't tape off the TV for some reason, so this is still the time period where I was taping every episode off the TV and watching them over and over again, but for some reason I missed this one, so I'm not as familiar with this episode as I was the other episodes of Season 1. In fact, I don't think it was years later till I saw this episode again, and if I'm being perfectly honest, I kind of forgot that the Vidiians were in this episode. The only thing I remembered about this episode is there being a human B'elanna and a Klingon B'elanna, which I thought was stupid. I remember, oh, that's stupid. I remember it being stupid, and I didn't really care for it. But when I went back and watched it years later, I was like, oh, it's the Vidiians, and this shows them as being villains and capturing people and forcing them into labor and like killing them off one by one and harvesting their organs. This is very different than how they were portrayed in the phage, where it's just like two people by themselves, and they said that they only resort to stealing organs because they had no other choice. That they normally try other processes. So this is the first time where they're seen as like this big sort of evil military force that goes around like capturing people and harvesting the organs and forcing them into slave labor. And this will come up several more times when we see the Vidiians again. This also sort of solidified the Vidiians as a recurring character, a recurring villain, because this is the second time they appeared. I don't even remember if I recognize them from the phage. Like, I honestly don't. I don't think I did. I think it wasn't until later where maybe something like Deadlock, where it's like, oh, they're actually making the Vidiians like a recurring species. I thought they only appeared once in that phage episode. But maybe I did recognize it in this episode. I don't remember, because as I said, I didn't even remember that I think it wasn't until 99 that I saw this episode again, and this episode came out in 95. So I don't remember, like, in those 4 years, I like totally forgot that the Vidiians were even there. In fact, I think the Star Trek cards, I talked about these and I used to play them a lot. I think they came out with the Voyager expansion before I saw this episode the second time, and they had like a Vidiians was like one of the major races you could play, and they had a lot of them from this episode, and I didn't recognize them. I was like, what? And it wasn't until like, yeah, till I saw it again, and I was like, oh, they're the ones that stole B'elanna's, or split her in half and made her a Klingon and a human. That's all I remembered about that episode, and I thought that was dumb. But as I said, when I watched it again, I appreciated it a bit more because I liked the Vidiian storyline, but I still hate the sort of splitting B'elanna in two storylines. So let me start with that. I think that's dumb. I still think that's dumb, and I always think that's dumb. First of all, the first thing I'll say about this is that Roxanna Dawson, usually like her, no complaints, great actress, she sucks as a Klingon. She overdoes it. Like, the way she speaks is so slowly and forced and like, why did you do this to me? Like, it just sounded like terrible acting. It was so bad. And here's the reason why I think that happened. Because I think she was told, probably by the director, that she needed to really differentiate herself from normal B'elanna. Like, and you can tell her human performance, I actually think, was good, because that was easier. That was all she had to do, was come off as more sort of soft and sort of weaker and not as like aggressive as B'elanna usually is, and that's kind of easy to do. But with the Klingon, it seems like, because there is like a certain Klingon way of like talking and behaving that I think that they do sort of try to kind of, especially the small roles, they try to have them play it a certain way to make it more uniform. So there's a Klingon way of speaking where he goes, "What is this?" Like, but this is like the exaggerated version of that. This is the total like over the top. And again, I think they did that to try to, oh, you gotta sell it differently to say this is different than B'elanna, but they overdid it. And it was actually came off as incredibly unnatural, even for a Klingon, where it was like, "Why would you do this to me?" Like, she just spoke like so clearly. So it's like, "How are you a coward?" And it was just a bad performance. I'm sorry, but it was. So that part of it was hard for me to get over. The whole concept of taking someone who has split heritage and well, in this case, it's like alien races, but still, and like taking them apart and having the two different versions and then interact with each other. Because, like, B'elanna never outright said she hated the Klingon half of her. I mean, they'll get into that a little bit more. But she seemed to not be a huge fan of it and prefer, because she was raised with humans and serves with humans. And so, oh, it's that damn Klingon half of me that makes me really aggressive and unable to control my anger. It was actually Kalar who said that more. But I think B'elanna had that same sort of attitude, but I don't think she ever outright said she hated the Klingon side of her. But they tried to be like, oh, well, this is her confronting what if she was fully human and how she's incomplete. Like, I think it's a worthwhile storyline for her to and this is one of the rarest times I'll ever say this, but I think they actually did this better in Season 7, which is very rare that I say an episode of Season 7 is better than an episode of Season 1. But in the episode Lineage, when they get into her sort of trying to change the genetic makeup of her child to make it look more human, because she's kind of ashamed of her Klingon half, and get into the backstory of how she felt kind of ostracized because of it, and their father abandoned her, and she blamed her Klingon side. Like, that was actually great character exploration. This of like, oh, literally split them in half and have a Klingon side and a human side, and she realizes as the human side that she needs that Klingon part of her. But it's funny because when the doctor, at the end of the episode, when the doctor said, oh, we're going to have to, input the Klingon DNA back into you, she was like, do you have to? And he's like, yeah, because you need that to survive. Without it, you'll die. So, I thought she was supposed to learn the lesson that she needed the Klingon half. Why would she say, oh, do you have to? Like, to me, that kind of undercut the whole point of the fucking episode. Why would she say that? Like, after the Klingon version of her just saved her life. But I just think it's silly. I know it's supposed to be Star Trek silliness, like enemy within kind of thing, having this split personality. But, because I don't think they're two separate people. It's like, they're just one person. You can't just take, I don't know, it's weird. Like, I guess this is like enemy within, sort of, but you can't really just say, oh, this is the Klingon side. And then she's acting like a Klingon, saying honor, this will be honorable, but it's still B'elanna. And B'elanna never really believed in Klingon tradition, so if you extract her Klingon DNA and make a full Klingon version of her, why all of a sudden she's all for Klingon traditions and knows all about being a warrior and being honorable when B'elanna never cared about it? Because it's still B'elanna. Where the fuck did these feelings come from? Are they trying to say that it's literally within Klingon DNA to care about honor and it's not a cultural thing? Which surely it fucking is. So that actually doesn't make any goddamn sense. Like, maybe she heard about these Klingon traditions and stuff when she was a kid, but it's very clear that she never bought into them and she didn't believe in them, and it doesn't make any sense just because you extract her Klingon DNA that all of a sudden she would believe in that. Like, it's not like her human DNA was blocking her from caring about these things. It had to do with the way she was raised. It had to do with how she was around humans most of the time. This was nurture, not nature. It's not DNA. Does not determine these things. It's just dumb. It is just dumb. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say about it, but I really didn't like it, if you couldn't tell. So that's all I remembered about it, and that's why I was like, never really cared to watch it again for a while. But when I did watch it again, I was like, this is actually a pretty exciting episode for the Vidiian half of it. And I didn't realize, like, they introduced the character of Durst in the previous episode, which he does kind of stand out in an episode. He's like, Captain, and it's like, who the hell is that guy? Why is he talking to Janeway? And they say his name several times, too, just so you make sure you hear it. Oh, Durst! Come here, Durst! Oh, Durst, do that. But he's actually not in this episode that much, but he just dies. He's basically just a red shirt. But it's the same actor who plays Durst plays the Vidiian. So that way, when he takes his face off and puts it on him, then that way they can do the effect because it's actually the same actor. Yeah, that was creepy as fuck. And I remember when I watched it for the second time, which for me was like watching it for the first because I didn't remember the scene at all. Because, yeah, I guess I was just, the whole Klingon B'elanna thing just overwhelmed my memory, and I didn't remember. So when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's fucked up. That is like really dark. That's like more dark than what Star Trek is willing to go, and how he's like, oh, I know I'm ugly, but let me rip off your friend's face and put it on me now, my pretty. And of course B'elanna's reaction is like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, which, by the way, Klingon or not, is the correct reaction to have. So that was fucking nuts. And then Chakotay having to sort of disguise himself as a Vidiian. I did not remember this at all. And sneak in and be like, it's me, Chakotay. Like, that's exciting. And again, this is the first episode that really portrays the Vidiians as sort of aggressive bad guys like this, instead of just two random people just running around and zapping people. They're like capturing them and doing forced labor and hiding out, and they were scary. The Vidiians were fucking scary in this episode, and the Phage were just kind of like these annoying dits, which again I was surprised they appeared again after that, but they were like, yeah, they were scary in this episode. So this is a much better episode for the Vidiians. It was intense, it was scary. The scenes with Tom and Durst and then human B'elanna, where they were worried that human B'elanna was weak and so they might kill her if she doesn't work. That was scary. Like, that was intense. Like, you were on edge. There was a tension to it. And that Talaxian guy was like, oh, they killed off my crew one by one. Like, that was scary. And by the way, speaking of the Talaxian guy, does anyone else think it's fucked up that they just left him there? Like, he was talking about, oh, I had to sit here and suffer for my crew for all these years, and they killed off all my crew, and I'm going to die eventually, and we're all fucked. And then he actually helped, like, B'elanna and Tom. And when it was time to escape, they're like, yeah, fuck him. Leave him behind. Let's just take Tom and let's just leave him behind to be killed by the Vidiians. Isn't that a little bit? Does anyone else think that's a little bit fucked up? I certainly do. Like, he helped you. Why would you just abandon him like that? Not like rescue him. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But anyway, and the scene where Chakotay's beaming up to the ship, and he says 3 humans and 1 Klingon to beam up. Like, they're never specific like that. Why would you say the alien? And I suppose like he wanted to specify which people to beam up, so they didn't beam up any Vidiians with them. But he could have just said 4 to beam up, and it was the 4 of them that were closest together. Like, I don't know. That always just seemed a bit off to me. It seemed like the show being like, oh, we got to point out there's a Klingon there. And the scenes between the 2 different versions of B'elanna, I know what they were going for. They were trying to be like, oh, this is her 2 halves, like literally fighting it out. I think that kind of ruins the metaphor. I think it's better to have it as an internal conflict, as 2 different halves. To literally have it like 2 different people arguing with each other, to me, it was just like too on the nose, and it was just. It's just not good. It's just not good. So, just like they should have extracted this whole storyline with B'elanna being split in half from this episode, it would have been a much, much better episode. It would have been a super intense episode, really great, suspenseful, scary fucking horror episode, but that whole splitting B'elanna in half thing, it just ruins it. And by the way, I remember when I was like first reading the TV Guide articles for Voyager when it first came out, they had articles saying, teasing some of the episodes coming up, and they're like, oh, we even have an episode where B'elanna gets split in half, and she's part of this human, and the other part is Klingon. And it took them a while to get there, but I was waiting for it because even before the show come out, they teased it. But then I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's dumb. That is actually dumb. But yeah, I at first wasn't being fair to this episode because I forgot all about this actually pretty intense, good, suspenseful Vidiian episode. But yeah. Anyway, I would now like to thank very much my Patreon supporters very much for supporting me on Patreon. They do help me continue with the channel. I'm forever grateful for everyone's support. Especially, I want to give a big special thanks to Brandon Neal Howes and Jordan Johnson. Thank you so much for your strong support. I would also like to give a shout out to Tyler Cease, Benjamin Mead, Antarius, Greg Marley, Francisco, Chuck Hooks, Kyrie091, Anthony D. Benedictus, Ricky, Matty Jester, Joel Valls, Alessandro Miglasio, Norman Buchwald, Stephen Kennedy, Brenton Berg, and Allison Fordyce. Thank you all so very, very much for your support. So we do have a few patron comments for this episode, if I can find them. Alright, so first comment, and let's see if I can find it, is from Antarius, who says, I never liked this episode. In my opinion, it is the second worst episode of the season after ex post facto. After splitting Torres up, her Klingon half acts so much like a stereotypical Klingon, something that always gets on my nerves. How is human Torres able to work the Vidiian console? Can she read Vidiian, or does she have a universal translator in her eyes too? So Klingons are supposed to be immune to the phage, so let's hope all the other members of the crew are not infected, since this implies, for example, humans are not immune. Very good point. And I think I had enough of all the cave scenes we had in recent episodes. In this episode, they were as boring as the attempts of the crew to get past the force field. On the positive side, there were some of the character scenes. Next week on Voyager, the crew stops to investigate a planet with even more caves. My rating is a 5 out of 10. Yeah, I don't know. I think I like the Vidiian plot a bit more than you, but I totally get your point about the generic caves. It is a bit tiresome. And yeah, universal translator in her eyes too. Didn't think of that. Anyway, next comment is from Tyler Cease, who says, character development. In this episode, we see a strong focus on character development, particularly for B'elanna Torres. The way the story explores her internal conflict torn between her Klingon and human halves is compelling and offers a deeper look at her character. The duality of B'elanna. I love how the episode really dives into B'elanna's inner struggle, visually represented by her two separate personas. It's a brilliant way to showcase how she perceives herself and how she deals with her identity crisis. It's definitely one of the most defining episodes. The Klingon-human conflict. But the portrayal of B'elanna, Klingon, and human sides is a perfect metaphor for the struggle many people face in reconciling the different parts of themselves. It's a theme that resonates deeply and feels very relatable. Strong emotional moments. The emotional weight of B'elanna's journey into this episode, particularly when she confronts her fears and insecurities, is what makes Faces stand out. It's more than just a sci-fi story. It's about self-acceptance. Tension and resolution. The tension that builds up when B'elanna faces her split personalities is intense, and it's satisfying to see her overcome the challenges posed by alien technology and the way she grows emotionally by the end. Guest performances. It's also worth noting that the solid performances by the guest actors who help bring B'elanna's conflict to life, especially in how they portray the dichotomy between her two sides. The alien perspective. The alien culture that forces this situation adds an interesting layer to the story, but I think the real focus should always be on the emotional journey B'elanna takes, which is the heart of the episode. Consistency with Voyager's themes. The episode enforces Voyager's core theme of navigating the unknown and how personal growth often happens in the face of adversity. It's a great reminder that even in space, our most challenging battles are often within ourselves. So, as for this being a good metaphor for the interpersonal conflict and one's inner, it's not. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree. I think it's too on the nose. It's too, it's too on the nose. I don't know how else to put that. It's like literally saying like, oh, well, she has an inner conflict between a Klingon half and a human half. I get that. But to literally like show that on screen literally and have a human her and a Klingon her arguing with each other and then learning to work together was too on the nose. I don't know how else to say it. It was too on the nose. It doesn't work. It's sloppy and it's lazy is the word I'm looking for. It's not a good metaphor, but that, my humble opinion. Anyway, next comment is from Jordan Johnson, who says, I think this episode has some of the most disturbing imagery for retro Trek anyway. I think conspiracy still takes the cake, though. I was too young to have seen Silence of the Lambs when this episode came out, so I imagine my surprise when I saw someone wearing another man's face. Here's what I'll say. when I first saw this episode, I guess I wasn't as impressed because I didn't remember it. I didn't remember it until 99 when I saw this episode again. And then I remembered it, but still. The whole... I did see Silence of the Lambs, though, when that first came out. But I never really equated them. I don't know. Anyway, next comment is from Kyrie091, who says, faces more like aces, because this episode is number 1. I like this one. To me, it's peak horror trek along with Impact Noir, both of which are among Mark's fave episodes. By the way, did you notice the guy who plays the Vidiian Doctor is the same actor who plays Durst? So he essentially puts his own face on. Bit of trivia, this is one of the only times one actor played 2 unrelated characters. Another example is Combs playing Brunt and Noyum in the same episode. Usually when one actor plays 2 roles, it's like the same character, clone or something. This is good, creepy episode. Yeah, the plot is silly and whatever, but it freaks me out and I like it. Durstway! I was supposed to say it more like Durstway. Yeah, like Janeway, whatever. The actor who plays Durst and the Vidiian, I will say, is a good actor. I do like him. He also appears in, what's it called? In the Cards as that silly guy. It's more of a silly role. I think he's better here. But yeah, I do like him. I think he's a good actor. I think he's been in, I looked up his IMDb and he was in like a lot of these like Law and Order shows recently, or some of these cop shows, and it seemed like he was a pretty good actor in those, but yeah. But yeah, I honestly disagree, and your recounting of my opinion, as usual, is not particularly spot on. It's usually, to be fair, sarcastic. This is not one of my favorite episodes, nor is Impact Noir. I will say I like this episode better than Impact Noir. I am not a fan of Impact Noir. That is too typical horror cliche, and I hate horror cliches. One thing I will grant you, I think this is a much better horror episode, and maybe I would have put it in my horror top 10 if it wasn't for the goddamn B'elanna being split in half. Like, that just ruins the episode. Like, I agree, like, the whole face ripping off, like, that was horrific. And the whole Vidiians and, like, threatening to rip out their organs and forcing them to work, like, that was, like, high stakes, high tension. But they ruined it by making it silly by, oh, this is the Klingon B'elanna. Anyway. Next comment is, let's see, from Stephen Kennedy. He says, I was going to do a BLT1 and a BLT2 campfire redo as Gollum and Smeagol parody. I don't have the time, so I will just say this. We hate Vidiians forever. So my rating is 8. Durst, we hardly knew you. Why did you get plastic surgery on your face and die on the operating table? I never know Durst played the Vidiian Doctor, so what I said was kind of true. Thank you, Kyrie091, for that fun fact out of 10. Adjusted comment. The only part of this episode I didn't like is when did BLT learn how to read Vidiian? Maybe she took an online course at www.vidiian.dq. Really? That's the only part you didn't like? You didn't like how stupid it was that they had a Klingon half of B'elanna and Russ and Dawson did a fucking terrible job acting it? Like, that didn't bother you? But her not reading Vidiian, that bothered you? Like, that's the hill you want to die on? Alright. that's on you. That's up to you. But not me. I'll tell you that much. And, a Vidiian Gollum parody actually would have been pretty nice. Pretty sweet. Although, that's better because that's 2 personalities of the same person. This time they took the metaphor and made it literal, which is why it sucks. But, anyway. Next comment is from Norman Buchwald, who, accidentally made a comment for Facets, because it has a very similar title to Faces, but came back with his actual comment for Faces, saying, "Okay, here's my review for Faces. The common Trek trope of being jailed and need to be rescued by the mothership is prevalent here. The story begins with what is going on with B'elanna and is often effective, cold WTF opening that is especially unique in Voyager, and I have to admit, most often works. As for separating and B'elanna wishes to be human and disliking her Klingon self, yes, this is a common psychological state I am sure in mixed race people, but I have to admit these days this theme almost makes me cringe. Given that Dawson is terrific in acting both parts and is probably why this episode gets more praise than what it's worth. Durst being murdered and the Vidiian trying to impress B'elanna is creepy enough, but it might have been even more creepy if there was some scene beforehand, either in the episode or past, that B'elanna was a bit interested in Durst. Given that it's creepy enough, why did our rescue team leave the Talaxian and others to be used as slaves and be organ donors or used for experiments is puzzling, as I have trouble saying, well, Prime Directive. That much on this one. With so many flaws and I admit cringe-worthy aspects, I can't give this episode more than 6 Durst faces out of 10. I think you have the most reasonable comment yet, Norman. And yes, what? So I do get why they didn't rescue everyone, because they didn't even show other people. It would have been like too hard. Like they were barely able to get out of there themselves. So I don't know. They could have like put the transporter on like wide bursts and like looked for any non-Vidians and beamed them up. But I'm willing to give them a pass on that. But the fucking Talaxian was right there, and he helped B'elanna in time. Why the fuck would you leave him behind? I wonder if they ever told Neelix about this. If they ever explained to Neelix, oh yeah, we saw one of your countrymen being held in the horror dungeon, and we just left him there to die a horrible death and have his organs ripped out because fuck him. Anyway, next comment is from Ricky, who says, I like this episode a lot, even better than Phage. The big bonus is there is no Neelix whining scenes, and it's a great character story for B'elanna. Again, I have to mention the vast superiority of earlier seasons and how well they write these characters, and I found this to be a strong string of episodes for her, and I like the interactions with her and the other characters. We also get the Vidiians again, and were better used here than the earlier episode. The moment where the Vidiian wore the face of the other red shirt was so creepy and scary. So yeah, strong character episode, scary moments, and suspenseful. So my rating is an 8 out of 10. Well, this is a monumentous moment. Let us celebrate. Let us celebrate this moment. It's very rare. Hardly ever happens. Rare moment for my channel. I actually disagree with Ricky. How rare is that? Me and Ricky are almost always on the same page, but not this episode. Well, it does show that we are actually real separate people. We're not the same person like the two B'elannas. We do disagree. That's great. I'm proud of you, Ricky. But anyway, now I'm exaggerating. We disagree every once in a while, but still, I don't think we usually don't disagree this much, as you'll see when I give my rating. So anyway, I do agree, however, that this is the better use of the Vidiians, and they're much better in this episode in the fish. So we do agree on that. So, thank you, patrons, so much for your comments. I know I did a little William Shatner there. Thank you, patrons, so much for your comments. But anyway, my rating, speaking of bad acting, like Roxanna Dawson gave. But anyway, my rating for Faces out of 10 is going to be a 4 poor And I think I am going a lot lower than I have before with this episode, because here's the thing. I think I might have been more positive on this episode in the past because I do like the Vidiian stuff. I agree with everyone who says that horror works. I agree with the thing with the saying the wearing of the face was creepy as hell. I agree with them saying it was suspenseful with the Vidiians, like, and the high tension and Chakotay having to go undercover. Like, that was all good shit. I just think it's ruined. It's so completely undermined and ruined by this whole splitting B'elanna in half. I think that story is absolutely horrible. I think it's horribly executed. I think Roxana Dawson does an absolutely horrendous job playing a Klingon. It makes no fucking sense. This is something none of the other patron comments pointed out, but it makes no sense why B'elanna, the Klingon half, would be all, honor, warrior thing, when that's not not in her personality. Why is it just because it's Klingon DNA that means all of a sudden she believes in Klingon culture? Like, that makes no goddamn sense whatsoever, and it pisses me the hell off. It's like nurture versus nature. Like Klingon culture is not in the DNA. And it's just stupid. It's a lazy way of exploring her inner conflict. They should have done it much better. It's better to do it metaphorical. It's better to do, like I said, one of the very rare instances, like shoot me in the head, that season 7's actually better than season 1. Wow! Like, that never happens, but here's the case, because Lineage did it way better, exploring her background, her childhood, why she's ashamed of her Klingon side, having an actual human, an actual Klingon argue with each other and reconcile and seeing the best in each other is fucking too on the nose. It's lazy. So honestly, if it wasn't for the good horror story, the face off, and the, high tension, high stakes, Chakotay going undercover, if it wasn't for all of this episode would get a 1. So anyone who's pissed off with me for giving this episode a 4, I know that I'm actually being very generous by giving it a 4. All those good aspects saved it from getting a 1. If it didn't have those good aspects and the rest of the episode sucked just as much as the splitting B'elanna in half, this would be a 1. But because of the good Vidiian storyline, I will be generous and give it a 4. So anyway, and I know I'm going to be a lot lower on this episode than most people are. But anyway, that is it for my review of Faces. If you enjoyed this episode despite your massive disagreement with me, thank you very much. I do appreciate you. And if you would like to support my channel, you can do so by leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment. Tell me how wrong I am about this episode, or how right I am. If you really want to support the channel, you could do so by supporting me on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. I have different awards for different tiers. I do a Patreon-only series where I revisit reviews that I've already done. And, you can leave comments for me to read in my videos, or do pre-releases, or you can request a video, depending on the tier you choose. Check it out if you are so inclined. So, let's see what's coming up on the old channel here. On Saturday, I will be doing a Patreon requested video, the top 5 best and worst plot twists in Star Trek. Monday, I'll be doing the Deep Space Nine episode of Family Business. And then on Thursday, I'll be over on Patreon for a revisited Patreon exclusive video, revisiting my review for Jetrel. So that's what's coming up on my channel. Be sure to check it out as I continue to cover Star Trek Voyager and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and many other videos on Star Trek and other shows as well. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.